A very good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to the panel discussion on optimizing India's city gas landscape. Uh, I promise you, despite this being a post-lunch session, with the kind of panel that we have today, I'm sure this will turn out to be a very exciting discussion for all of us sitting here. Let me just start with a quick round of introductions. My name is Saurabh Singh. I'm a partner with Kearney. I've been with the firm for almost 2 decades now, and I lead the energy practice of the firm across Asia Pacific. In the spirit of full disclosure, I must say that I'm a very, very passionate follower of the city gas landscape in India. In fact, I've served city gas companies for the last 15 odd years, literally having had the opportunity of working with all of them on multiple strategic topics. And which is why, while I feel very proud of the sector, my heart also bleeds for this sector. And we have the right stakeholders here today. So it will be a good opportunity to understand what's going well with the sector, at the same time what is it that can be done better to improve things. I'll quickly introduce my extremely high-powered panel. I'll start with Goutom. Goutom Chakraborty is the CEO of GAIL Gas Limited, and again a very known figure in the industry. Rajesh Mediratta is the MD and CEO of India Gas Exchange Limited, which is again a key enabler for city gas right now. I mean, of course, across multiple other sectors. Mr. Chatiwal, who's the MD of Indraprastha Gas Limited, which has been probably one of the earliest and most successful CGD stories in the country. Akhil Mehrotra, who's the MD of Pipeline Infrastructure Limited, again a very known figure in the CGD space, while currently he's in another part of the value chain looking at PIL, but CGD is not new to him at all, given his past role. And last but not the least, Mr. Senthil Kumar, and he is somebody who is sitting on top of a truly multi-fuel portfolio, where CGD is still a very important part of it. So it will be good to understand from him how does he view it in the overall scheme of things. So it's so effectively in this panel we have people who do CGD for a living. We also have people who have other options because they have multi-fuel portfolios. We also have people who are sitting, who are part of the enabling ecosystem, be it pipelines or be it pricing. So it'll be hopefully an interesting discussion wherein we'll get a 360-degree view of the sector and what is it that can be done better. But before we jump into the questions, I'll give a quick couple of minutes rundown on how I see the sector. I mean, the CGD story in India is a story of glass half empty or glass half full, depending on how you see it. Over the last few years, I think the glass looks a little fuller to me. Things have improved, but as someone who has been seeing the sector for so many years, I must say the sector has promised a lot in the past, but I don't think the entire thing came through across all the GAs, and that is something which all of us, I'm sure the people in the audience are very passionate about the sector too, would feel similar. In fact, we had done an assessment of the 300 odd GAs that we have in the country. Almost 165 have woefully not met their potential, and by woefully I mean if they were to have even come close to the top quartile performance, we would have been having at least 50% more CGD flows in the country. So that's the glass half empty part. The glass half full part is the sector is already the second largest consumer of gas in the country, and it is only a matter of time, barely a few more years, when this will be clearly the #1 gas consuming sector in the country, and in a few years by a few multiples. So this is the potential and the promise of this sector, and I think there is a way to go for this particular sector to move on. But I'll start with Mr. Chakraborty with a quick provocation. The glass half empty part of it. One can argue that the sector has obviously not lived up to its potential. There are clearly places where we could have done better. So what is the reason as per you, and what's your outlook for the sector right now?
Good afternoon to all of you. I think for giving me opportunity to express my views on this particular interesting topic. Partially, I am not completely in agreement with you. For me, it is more than half full. And as far as this entity is concerned, after 9th and 10th round of bidding round, actually it took off, the CGD entities, and it is hardly 5 to 6 years old now, the CGD entities who acquired these GAs in 9th and 10th round. And if you see the overall CAGR growth is around 10%. So it is fairly good enough, but if you go into detail of those GAs who acquired these GAs in 9th and 10th round, the CAGR is above 30%. So there is a huge opportunity obviously there. And 10 years back, the city gas consumption of natural gas consumption in CGD is around 10 MMS CMD. Now it is second, as you told, it is over 35 MMS CMD, and within a year or so probably will cross fertilizer, who is the number one. So the growth is there. Obviously there are some challenges, as you know that it is a highly labor oriented industries where you need to lay the infrastructure physically, digging every corner of the roads and and then you have to lay the line, and it cannot be done within a fraction of days or years. So it will take time, and already the CGD entity is doing their best. And as you have seen that there are people are there because the consolidation has already started in these industries, and the big players are already there, and they are investing huge amount of money. Obviously the gestation period is very high in this particular industry, and we have seen that the merger or acquisition are taking place. Some foreign investors are coming in this industry. So they are giving, I think, everyone is giving importance to this sector, and in my opinion, maybe in the next decade and so we'll be achieving the full potential what we have. As far as challenges are concerned, in my opinion, this particular infrastructure companies are not giving that importance what we should get. Because we are laying our pipeline industry in tier 2, tier 3 cities, where we have given the last preference. First is water, obviously, electricity, telecom industries are giving preferences, even the above ground infrastructure like laying your roads and then bridges, and we come on the last. So everywhere we find these things, probably this will change and probably will reach to everyone. And if you see that the connectivity of the cross country pipeline is yet to reach every part of the CGD entities, and with a virtual pipeline it is very difficult commercially also to spread everywhere, but probably the things will change in a couple of years and we'll be there. So probably I am not completely agree with you, obviously.
First of all, I must say, even I agree that the glass is more than half full, or appears more than half full now. Over the years, things have been improving. There was an interesting point that you made about consolidation as well. In any case, even if we look at it today, right, the top 5 players control almost 30% of the GAs, but 70% of the gas volumes that are flowing. So there is a strong amount of consolidation that's already there. M&A, I expect, is something that is going to happen a lot more in the sector in the coming years. And I think, but I think the problems around infra, the problem around getting the right permissions to do things quickly are important, and they have to be solved, because without it, the story can get slower than what it can promise to be. So thank you for the response. I'll now move to Mr. Chatiwal, and again, he leads a company that in some ways, to a very large extent, pioneered large-scale CGD play in the country. And I'll ask you a slightly different question in the context of energy transition, right? Because right now we are faced with multiple fuel choices. It's not just about, it's either oil or now a CNG as an option for fuel transportation, right? There's EV, there are other things which are also emerging. How do you see this playing out? Because, and especially, there are two kinds of GAs. Some where you already have solid CGD infrastructure, and some which are new. So people may have made bigger commitments, but they still haven't met them. So how do you see the CNG versus EV trade-off playing out there?
Saurabh ji, fellow panelists, invited guests, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to all of you. Now, before I was just listening to Goutom speak about the CGD. Actually, you have to look at the success, what it has achieved in the last 10 years. I mean, prior to that, the sector itself was a very small, I mean, if you look at the gas consumption, 10 years back, it was only 17 MMSCMD. Today, it is at 42, 43. So, in 10 years, and just a small push from the government, that what they have done is they have given authorization across the country. We had only 66 GAs, now 307 GAs have been authorized. So that's the only thing that has been done, and it has resulted into gas consumption going from 17 MMSCMD to 42. Now, as we know, the fertilizer is more or less stagnant, that consumption in India is stagnant, no new plants are coming up. So that being stagnant, and this 42 is going to take over. I think it's a matter of time that we will be crossing maybe 52, 53. 52 or 55 is the number for fertilizer. So that we will be crossing, and our assessment is by 2040 we should be reaching somewhere around 120 MMSCMD. That is the kind of growth. Now, having said that, if you look at the CGD space, it can be divided into two parts. One is the CNG segment, and another is the piped natural gas segment. Now, CNG today accounts for around 55 to 60% of the volumes. Out of say 42, 43 million, around 23, 24 is going to the CNG segment. Balance is going to piped natural gas segment. Now, piped natural gas, all of us agree that there is absolutely very little competition, in the sense that yes, there is competition for the domestic fuel part, that it is subsidized space, that we are competing against a fuel which is subsidized by the government, but still it is competitive. I would say, if you leave aside a couple of things, if the infrastructure is in place, you can match even that subsidized gas. Even at 500 rupees cylinder, you can match if you have the infrastructure in place, or the depreciated infrastructure. For industrial and commercial, unless it is a very polluting fuel, you can match that. So PNG space has I think the open space, you can expand there. Only the problem is the capital intensive nature of that business, and the returns would be coming in a couple of years. Now that leaves the CNG space, which is, I think, for most of the CGD entities, that is the segment which gives them, I think, the revenues for expanding to the for the capital intensive part of the business. So here you say that EV is coming, but if you look at the data of last 2-3 years, if I quote you the last 23-24, CY 23-24 data, CNG segment has grown by 45 to 46%, EV has grown by 5 to 10%. Although I believe that EV will definitely pick up, given that the charging infrastructure is coming up and everything, but the amount of growth and the aspiration or the urbanization of India is at such a pace that the vehicle or the four-wheeler vehicle segment, passenger vehicle, commercial segment, so that is continue to grow at around 10 to 12%. So EV alone, I feel, would not be sufficient in that space. And if we can make CNG, I mean, these prices of CNG are ranging from say 75 rupees in Delhi to more than 100 rupees. So that is the kind of variation. And one of the major reason has been that the state taxes vary from 14% to say 35%. So if in case the taxes are rationalized, so everybody can bring down the prices. And our belief at IGL has been that in case you can make this fuel attractive, because everybody is aware that the mileage part is there when we compare with even with EV. So EV running cost, if we take the commercial power at 20 rupees, the running cost is 2 rupees, and CNG would be say somewhere around 2.75 or 2.8 rupees. So not much difference in case of the running cost, but upfront cost is very, very high in case of EV. And the resale part, if you like 5 years down the line, you need to change 5 to 8 years, you need to change the battery part. So there is a less resale value, and in India, there is a tendency that people like to switch the models after 4 to 5 years. So that's a bottleneck, I feel, in that space. But having said that, EV will definitely find a space, and moreover, our segment or the CGD space that we are catering to is a you can say the medium segment, medium to entry level segment. Our highest model is Maruti Grand Vitara SUV, entry level SUV. So that is our highest model. Now EV, you can see that entire space, right, from Tesla, a few crores or many crores of vehicle. So that is not, in any case, not competing with CNG. So our competition is primarily with petrol and to some extent with entry level EVs. So there we feel that the good EVs, they may not be able to compete on the upfront cost, while our running cost, if we can bring down the prices or keep the prices low. Because our belief is that in case the prices go up, something comes in the customer's mind that this is costlier than petrol or something like that. That is a very conscious decision that we take to keep the prices below petrol and diesel. I mean, give sufficient margin so that there is a belief in customer that this is a much cheaper fuel, it has a better mileage. So overall saving 40 to 50% if we can demonstrate. So there is a big push for him to convert to CNG rather than to go for petrol version. Now EV is again a customer choice, that if he finds it more economical than CNG, then definitely they will prefer that. But right now with all the subsidies given to EV, still the running cost is, I would say, 20 to 30% higher. The per mileage, 2 rupees versus 2.8 rupees, and the upfront cost is, I think, 30 to 40% more than CNG variant. So that is a big deterrent. And the moment we get a level playing field, in the sense that the subsidies are removed from EV segment, or the same tax advantage is given to, say, CNG and LNG space, then I think the CNG space will be much more lucrative to the end consumer.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for this. It's interesting to see that you also hold the belief that all the fuels will coexist. I mean, it's not while EV will eventually gain some traction,
yes,
for sure, but there seems to be a good play for CNG as well, which I acknowledge. On that note, I'll move to Mr. Senthil Kumar, and again, it's interesting because he, as Indian Oil, you're sitting on a truly multi-fuel portfolio. You have all those choices. In some cases, your own fuels could be competing with each other in a particular GA as well. So it'll be interesting for this group to know where does CGD feature in your scheme of things? How do you view CGD, and what's your outlook on it?
Thank you, Mr. Saurabh, and thank you, IEW, for giving Indian Oil an opportunity. I like the way you introduced the panel. You started by saying that there are a few here who do CGD as full-time and some as part-time. So let me begin. You are right. Indian Oil, actually in 2005, we did it not as part-time, as pastime. So the first foray was in 2005 with another PSU. So that was a pastime. And 10 years after that, then we became part-time with another private player. And we became full-time in 2018. And Indian Oil does not view CGD as competing, like most of you would like to believe. It is complementing, actually. We are an energy major, and you rightly said, we go with a bouquet of offerings of everything in the energy sector. And that is how we look at CGD. And because, as I told you, from 2018, we have become full-time players. In the GS that we are invested, we have left no stone unturned. And we have started in full earnest, right from the 18th and 19th round. We have started in full earnest by laying the infrastructure first. And the fact that the CGD segment growth itself is picking up is evident from what we find from the revenues that we are collecting from the earlier rounds. So that the initial phases were huge capex dependent and the revenues were slow. But in the latest phase, the revenue generation is much more compared to the capex. That itself is enough indication that this sector is about to explode. Another reason is the urbanization that we expect should be happening. Two things. One, the already expanded cities are growing. And number two, we see signs of development in other tier 2 cities also. So that also augurs well for the PNG segment. And CNG will be will continue and remain as it is globally, the choice fuel for long haulage. I don't think EVs ever will come into that space anytime in the near future. And hydrogen itself is at least a decade more to come. And that's how Indian Oil looks at it. CGD is today a part of our business, and we are fully invested, and we hope to do much better in CGD. Thank you.
Got it. So if I were to summarize the first three comments from the panel, I'd say the group is extremely proud of where CGD is, and they see a lot of potential. B, while there is acknowledgement of competition coming from EV, it is still they still think CGD is a force to reckon with, which I completely agree. And the fact that even multi-fuel players such as Indian Oil are absolutely committed to it. So this is the view of people who are selling CGD. Now I'll move to the other couple of elements. So, and again, Mr. Mehrotra, you've been in this business before, but now you're in a different organization, which is more an enabler to a certain extent. But I'll ask you a question regarding infrastructure, because one of the and this was also, by the way, pointed out by Mr. Chakraborty earlier, that the inability to lay infra quickly is a major bottleneck. So if I may ask you, what's the issue here, and what can be done about it?
Okay, thank you, and good afternoon all. Yes, I think as we all talk about CGDs, the demand is infinite in most of the cities. I think the reason most of the CGDs are not able to meet that demand is infra, I think, and obviously the gas should be at right price. So let me address these infra into few parts. First is the core infra, right, for the CGD, which is the ring main structures in which you lay. Broadly, I think we have been talking of single window clearances, and I'm coming to solutions because we know the problem is the city gas companies don't get clearances from the local municipalities and also multiple agencies who get involved. So first thing I think we should do is get some form of single window clearances which give priority to CGD as an infra sector and a priority sector. And then I think others said that, look, actually we have the last mover advantage anyways, electricity cables and others are there. And the problem there is also that in the planning phase in India, the cities are not planned as it is in the other part of the world, so we don't have any utility corridors. So and city gas companies, when I was also running, we used to get the flack of the local citizen that you dig all the roads and still not able to lay. So I think this first part of the problem is the main infra, which needs faster clearances from the local government bodies, and that requires coordination from, say, state to the local body, because sometimes what happens is the party which rules these two are very different, so they don't listen to each other. So we need better coordination there. Better coordination maybe through a mechanism where all utilities come together and also coordinate with each other, and to some extent this is happening, but government needs to lay a great emphasis on this issue. So that the main infrastructure, which is pipeline lay, can go faster. Then we come to the specifics. For example, if you talk of laying risers for the buildings, and I'm from Mumbai, and Delhi has high-rise buildings. So why not? I don't see still the builders actually opting to lay these pipes when the building has been done. Most of them are doing it, but the smaller ones are not. So if that is done, that will be a faster rollout of the domestic, and it will be cheaper also when the building is being constructed. Another thing related to these risers are lack of resources, because when we are licensed some 98% of the country, definitely the resources will be in short supply. These are high-rise places where you have to have skilled labor to lay these pipelines. So a lot of work is being done in ITIs and all to do, but again more needs to be done. So that resources are available for laying that. The third segment, which is CNG, if we come to that, especially in metro, the smaller city doesn't have this problem, is availability of land where you can set up a CNG station. Most of the companies are dependent on OMCs, which they've been kind enough to give spaces, but in absence of that, it would have been a problem. Delhi is exception, where government did follow a model where a lot of CNG stations are there which are on prime land, but Bombay was a problem, and other cities have a problem where I think government needs to find and allocate some places where only for CNG station, larger plots where number of vehicles can fill, your dispensers are more. So I think there are multiple issues here in terms of how faster the approvals can be given for laying, more coordination between different agencies, and also more government push towards that from center to state and the local bodies, kind of a way to say that.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Very clear set of recommendations, and hopefully, you know, if even a part of these were to get implemented, I'm sure this will accelerate the pace. Switching gears to the other key enabler for not just for CGD but to make India a truly gas-based economy, I think it is to have a transparent and market for pricing, right? And there, I think, and I'll move to Mr. Mediratta because on fluctuations in gas pricing has been a reason for the relatively slower proliferation of CGD in certain cases, right? So, if I may ask you, how has the gas exchange benefited here, and what has been your experience so far?
Yeah, thanks, Saurabh, and very good afternoon. I think this panel is structured so well, CGD, pipeline, and then market. And we also see this market is important element of the whole sector, because when you put everything together, how the commodity should flow from supply side to demand side, that is done efficiently through market. And if you have got good market structure, then definitely it helps. And we see exchange as a market infrastructure, because we can provide something which has been missing so far before exchange came in: transparency, competition, flexibility, and then payment security to the seller. So all of these issues are handled by the exchange. And having got exchange in place, I can assure you that biggest beneficiary of the exchange, of the transparency, of the flexibility has been CGD. So there are, and particularly when you see that recently there has been a cut in APM allocation, then of course this became very, very handy. How it helped, just let me give some brief on that. See, exchanges have been allowed to trade domestic gas. So before us, the only option was that somebody can purchase domestic gas, which is ceiling price gas and other free market gas. Of course, APM is not included there, but somebody can purchase only through long-term contracts, which is 3 to 5 year contract, which domestic producers do auction, and then that is through auction only it gets distributed. But when CGDs are now coming up, their demand is growing. They don't know to what extent it will grow. There is certainty is not there, so they cannot have something for a horizon of 3 to 5 years. But when exchanges have been allowed to facilitate auction of these markets, so now the domestic producers are able to do it in very shorter time frame. ONGC has done auctions for even on day-ahead basis, on week basis, on a month, fortnight, and of course it goes now today up to 3 months and 6 months. And I will give you the number, and now you see ceiling price gas, which is about $10, is the next cheapest option after the APM. And when APM allocation has now been reduced, then the other choice was ceiling price gas. And in January 23, Ministry also issued order where they gave priority to CGD. So whenever there is auction of domestic gas, the priority will be to CGD, and of course then it will be followed by LPG, fertilizer, LPG and power. But now we see that whatever auctions we do, and there is a substantial number, like today so far we have done trade of say 4.8 crore MMBTU, which is about 4 MMCMD throughout the period so far. And out of that, something like 30% has been purchased by CGD, and that includes domestic gas and RLNG. And out of domestic gas and out of whatever volume we have traded so far, about 30% is the domestic gas. So 70% is RLNG, 30% is domestic ceiling price gas, and out of this 30%, 80% has been purchased by CGD. So CGD have really got benefit in terms of getting a real second best option which is currently available in the country. And if you look at the RLNG part, there also, since we are very competitive, very transparent, and whatever price you get on the exchange, you can always presume it is the best one at that particular time. Of course, it keeps varying. When now the spot prices in the market is something like $16–17, the trade which happens on exchange is something like 13–14. But of course, it may not be good for the suppliers. But since the market is price sensitive and there are no buyers at that 15, 16 or 17 dollars, so normally you see a price which is quite at a discount to the spot prices in the international market. So these are two areas where CGDs have got benefited, and of course the other parts of the sector have also got benefited. So we always have been pursuing that we should do something more for the market, because only having exchange is one part, which is infrastructure, but the supporting and enabling policies and regulations we think are more required, because today the market is not efficient. Efficient means you don't have access so smooth, the capacity access is not so smooth, the barriers are there for entry, and not all types of diverse supplies are available on the exchange. Today we have only, when we do free market trade, mostly it is RLNG and some domestic gas. But suppose we really discover a price based on SPST plus long-term contracts and something from each segment, and then put them together, we really will be, it will be really helpful, because then volatility will be much less. Sure. Today volatility is there because we are linked only to spot prices in the market, but tomorrow if you have a good mix, then definitely the prices will be much stable, and that will be helpful for CGD particularly, because CGD cannot have a volatility in the price for the customers. A customer cannot be exposed to price volatility what the CGD company is facing. So
we'll probably get into a bit more detail of it in the next round, but it's an interesting point that you're making about how the exchange per se, I mean, it's an innovation how gas is getting sold in the country, and that is helping us. Staying on the topic of innovation, I'll move to another kind of innovation which is disrupting almost all sectors, and that is digital, right? I mean, digital and analytics is something which is affecting literally all the companies, and CGD as a sector also is not untouched by it. I mean, in fact, there's a lot of potential. If you look at utilities globally, they have embraced technology and related innovations in a big way. So I'll do this in a rapid fire manner across all the five. It's the same question I'm asking. In your view, if there was one digital or technology innovation that you think has the maximum potential to change things around in CGD, what would that be? And I'll just go in this order.
If you want to tell me to pick any one of it, it is difficult, but still I will pick the smart metering. That you know that domestic customers are now not paying their dues in time, and we are facing difficulties to disconnect those customers. So if we have a prepaid meters, just like what we are now using it in electricities, it can, I think, protect the CGD entities, and there will be because that will give us a very good platform to analyze the consumption pattern, consumption loads, and probably that will be a great help for us, and probably all the CGD entities are now going in that way. So that smart metering can be one of it.
Makes sense. Mr. Mediratta.
Yeah, I think I also agree with Mr. Chakraborty that smart metering is the first thing, because it improves the working capital cycle, and today the benefit what electricity sector has got, there is a huge benefit. And in India, the commodities which are received in pipeline or network, because there you do not have that kind of, you can't control that, and they are more of a sensitive commodities. So these things only should be supplied where you have really good way of measuring it and billing it, and then maybe if required to stop it, and that can be done, I think, better in the smart meter with prepaid kind of arrangement.
Got it. Mr.
Yeah, so
Chatiwal.
smart metering is already covered. I will give another dimension.
Yeah.
That is with respect to improving the customer experience when it comes to a CNG station. So there we feel that if we can use the artificial intelligence, and the app can tell us that which station has got more queues or which has got less queues, and on the app the message comes that this nearest station is having more queues or less queues, especially in Delhi, I would say, where the queues are still an issue. In smaller, newer GAs, maybe this is not an issue, but for mature GAs, this is a major issue that queuing is somewhere on the main routes. Some of the stations are very queued. If you go 10 kilometers or 5 kilometers down the road, they may be empty. So that is one area where we feel that artificial intelligence for not only telling that, second is from the safety point of view, if we can, because you know the testing, hydro testing of cylinders and all is a not only a regulatory thing but a safety hazard also. Because if they use the expired cylinders, then it can potentially be very hazardous. So that, you know, the cylinder testing when it was last tested, or the details of the vehicle, all the details of the vehicle can be captured online. I mean, there are apps which can capture those, and then you know, the station operator or the dispenser boy, he can know that whether he has a valid cylinder test certificate. So these are the two areas where we feel that AI can be, or digital can be used in a big way, and pilots have been done by IGL also, and they are hugely successful.
Fantastic. No, great to hear. Great to hear.
Again, since you have asked for maximum impact, we will repeat few things. And obviously, this is a demand side management also. Smart metering, smart dispensing. And when I say smart here, I'll add to what Mr. Chatiwal is saying, that the dispenser itself helps you capturing all the data, and then it refuses to fill if the certificates are not there to extend that logic. So these two, because your maximum customers are through meters and dispensers, your touch points are that. If you can use that, put an AI layer over that. First you have to build the data, because that has to be first before we do the AI layer. Then you build the AI layer over that. I think that has huge benefits, not only for safety point of view, but also for demand side management.
Got it. Great.
Sorry.
Most of it has been touched, but I'll tell you what we are doing in Indian Oil. We have invested heavily in SCADA. So using this data, so we are in a position to almost reduce dryouts by almost next to nil. The last 1 year, from almost, we used to have 10 to 12 dryouts per day. Now it's next to nil, and that is thanks to the SCADA implementation. And number two is, as the other panelists had said, the dispenser itself gives you a lot of information. So one such data is the customer experience. So you also get to know the turnaround time. So that is one input which will help the customer experience. But that is a major concern from customers in gas filling stations.
Got it. Very, very interesting points from the panelists. And I must say, you know, having seen the sector up close, I think there is a huge opportunity to use, you know, digital and analytics at scale. I mean, the kind of data that CGD companies have access to is just amazing. And I think we are still barely scratching the surface. Of course, some very interesting pilots and initial efforts are being made, but I think a lot can be done, and you know, hopefully this triggers some more thought on how we can push more on some of the digital ideas. But Mr. Senthil Kumar, I'll just stay with you now, and I'll move in the opposite order. You know, I'll get to supply now, right? So supply is crucial, and other than infra and pricing, I mean, the supply security is something which I'm sure gives sleepless nights to CGD operators, and with APM also kind of coming under pressure, there is there are concerns. So the question now is, what will it take to ensure supply security for the CGD sector?
Ideally, if you have, like for example, in liquid fuels, we always have a minimum service period on storage. Unfortunately, in gas, that is not the case. Like for example, recently we had a situation, a tanker delay had caused some anxious moments. So one is to double the capacity or storage capacity in all our terminals. That gives some breathing space, number one. And number two, most important, is to make sure that the national gas grid comes up, because the gas grid itself is a storage. So that should be the topmost priority. Price, of course, we do not have much leeway. And in CGD, what is of more concern now, if you just see the difference between diesel and CNG, like when we started, then I'll take one GA for example, Aurangabad. When we started in 2018-19, the difference was around 22 rupees a kg, the difference. And today it is only 4 rupees.
Understood. Okay. No, great point. I'll move to you, Mr. Chatiwal, and it's a topic which gives a lot of heartburn to a lot of the CGD enthusiasts. I think the topic of decarbonization, because we all know that it's important, and CGD has had a great role to play in making that happen. I think sometimes the story of that has not been adequately communicated or proliferated. So what are your views on what more can be done in this area, and how do we communicate it right to all the stakeholders?
Yeah, I believe that this is one space where, apart from the economic benefit, this is one space where CGD sector can make a huge difference. Now let me give you one figure that world over, 58% of the energy mix is coming from coal and liquid fuels, oil and coal. Whereas in India, the figure is 85%. So that's the kind of difference, that we are still very much dependent on solid and oil for our energy needs, where we feel that world has shifted from coal and oil to gas and renewables and nuclear, because the 42% there is contributing there from all these sources, whereas in India it is only 15% and gas is 6% against 23-24% worldwide. So this sector has a lot of scope that and what it can do. I will just demonstrate that one major initiative the CGD entities have taken, or I would say the ministry has taken, is the waste to energy projects across India. However, the success of that can be debated, that how successful it is. And I believe, or CGD entities believe, the primary reason was that initially it was linked to sustainable Satat scheme for transportation only, and now it has been given a second option of integrating or the synchronization scheme, where you can integrate it with the CGD network. So that is a big game changer in my opinion, in the sense that now we are planning a GA, geographical area, running entirely on waste. Be it the agri waste or the industrial waste, be it sugarcane, the press mud that we get from the sugarcane factory, or the distillery waste, spent wash, and of course MSW is always there. So the entire GA, it is possible to run on, if you have sufficient quantity of waste, you can run the entire GA on waste to energy products. So what this does is, it makes India self-reliant. We will be demonstrating one GA where not only it will be self-sustaining, but it will be exporting the biomethane, biogas to the pipeline. Now the main challenge there, in my opinion, is that the quality of gas that has to be monitored, and we need to put in place certain processes so that the pipeline quality gas is delivered, and that if we can use it to our CGD network, because most of the hard work has been done by CGD entities by way of developing the city gas infrastructure. Now what it needs is we need to plug in a few sustainable or affordable alternatives in the form of one is waste to energy kind of things. The second is that it not only increases the, it is everybody knows that it is negative carbon rather, it gives carbon, negative carbon. So once you use that, so that is one part. Second is that they can increase in greening of their operations. By greening, I mean that you can integrate our prime movers, whatever we are using to drive our compressors and all, with green power.
Sure.
So that is another aspect. So I think CGD entities have a lot of role because our cities are the major consumers. I mean, there is one saying that we will be developing 13 Mumbais in next 2 decades. Those are the kind of cities that will be developing equivalent to 13 more Mumbais in next 1 or 2 decades. So those kind of cities will be coming, and a lot of waste will be generated by the human consumption, agriculture waste. Already we have, but we are not harnessing there. So CGD entities can help in that direction. Second is the core business itself. The core business of CNG, when you compare with other liquid fuels, it is in any case more, carbon intensity of that is very, very less. And the third major aspect that we feel the CGD entities can play a major role is the LNG space, where the medium and heavy commercial vehicle segment, there are very limited options in the sense that electrification of that is still a challenge world over, and India being still starting the EV journey would be difficult. So I think CGD entities with their experience of CNG dispensing, because we feel that LNG would be in similar kind of a position that instead of generating CNG, you will be making use of LNG, and the dispensing experience would come in handy there. Of course, the petrol diesel dispensing is also similar, so it will also be I mean, they will have the advantage. So that is one space where we feel these are the 2-3 areas where CGD entities have a major role to play in the decarbonization journey.
Got it. No, thank you. Very, very interesting thought, especially how you can have a GA which is purely driven by waste to energy with the right quality of gas. I mean, hopefully that takes fruition, and that will be a game-changing step for the industry. We have the last 10 minutes to go. I'll quickly come to you, and I'll request you to respond in a minute, because you had specifically brought out the point about infrastructure earlier, and while Mr. Mehrotra had clarified on some of these, anything incremental that you want to put there which has to be done from an infrastructure?
The problem with that we should be given the priority list, we should be little bit above than other utilities that they are having. But we understand that inconvenience of the people over there, because we have to dig the entire road and all. So apart from that, if you see that as far as infrastructure is concerned, now the different state governments are now coming up with the CGD policies, which are quite good, and probably the policies are almost at par with that all across. So there will be a standardization of that CGD policy all across India, and obviously the taxation and other things has to be taken care, so that everything should be
clear. Thank you. And Mr. Mehrotra, just very quickly, the next few years will be crucial for CGD. I mean, with the pressure on decarbonization, there are some headwinds and there are some tailwinds as well, right? So how do you see the end game evolve for the sector now that you're looking at it outside in? Will there be more M&A? Will there be more regulatory push due to non-meeting of MWP targets? What's going to happen?
Okay, a few points, and first on decarb, if I can add to Mr. Chatiwal, that as gas industry people, we have been a lot of time accused by environmentalists because any methane leak is very dangerous. So I think I request CGD players also to see any leaks are there, and most of them are doing it to arrest that kind of, right? So that will help us to position ourselves as more cleaner kind of, right? And I think they are more on upstream, but midstream and downstream can also do that. But coming to, I think consolidation is something which is already happening kind of, right? A lot of smaller players merging with bigger players, and that's good because if you have some good 10-12 players in the market, and that's good for any market, and there are multiple players here kind of, yeah. But I'm very optimistic about, despite all the I think headwinds we have discussed today, I'm very hopeful and very optimistic that CGDs is one of the sectors which will play a big role if we have to increase the share of gas in the national mix. It is much cleaner than obviously multiple fuels, and obviously if we have to clean up the city air, and I'm very clear, and this is not only mobility, right? I want to bring in here that there are almost maybe more than 1 million MSME players which are there around, in and around the large cities. Can we bring a push or a regulatory push to clean up that production? Now, we can't do it just that, okay, you stop burning coal and liquid fuels and start using gas. Bring in some consumption link incentives for them, because they also need to survive. This is a very important unorganized sector for us, but I'll say there are millions of them. If you bring a policy for them, I'll say this CGD, because it gets a little bit anchor load, because domestic takes a lot of time, commercial takes, commercial load is not that large. So if you get this MSME into the fold, two benefits happen. CGDs can grow very fast, it increases the viability, and also I'll tell you that city air will become much cleaner, even in addition to what you are doing on the EV. So very hopeful on what CGDs will there. I think the demands will multiply. There are various assumptions, so I'll not get into it, whether by 2035 it's 3x or something. But I think this is one of the segment which will grow very fast now, because initially I've been in sector for long. It takes 5-6 years after you authorize a GA to get the main infra in place, and then the growth happens very quickly.
Certainly, certainly. No, great. With the last few minutes to go, I'll just do what I typically do at the end of all my panels. I'll request each of the panelists to just, if you were to think unconstrained, right? I mean, to do a lot of what we just said, right? Be it in the area of decarbonization or improving infra or digitalization, a lot of it cannot be done only by yourself or by one entity, right? So if you have to think unconstrained and think about what strategic partnerships can help the sector, and if you had a wish list, what would that one thing be? And I'll start with you, Ms. Senthil Kumar.
I would start by saying, see, this business is going into a mode where a merger is about to happen in all the places, because it doesn't make sense. You have an infrastructure in place, then you are looking to serve a geographical area which is contiguous. The GS allotment is not happened in that manner, whereas the infrastructure development is skewed towards one operator. So this is the order of the day, number one. And number two is, you are already finding a lot of foreign investors who have been invested in the gas business coming to exit the business. That means it has reached that potential where it is about to unlock value. So these are two drivers which will start a series of mergers and acquisitions.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mehrotra.
I'll say, in addition to this, collaboration is one thing which CGD will explore more and more, whether it's collaboration with the next GA owner or with the government or with some of the technology players. I think when you collaborate, I think you can bring down the cost as well as make it more efficient and viable kind of. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you. Mr. Chatiwal.
I would say that in the sourcing space or the input gas space, there is a lot of opportunity there. First is with respect to international sourcing of RLNG. That is one space we feel that there can be strategic collaborations, not only among the big suppliers, but among the consumers also. I mean, the CGD, smaller CGDs can then combine and make it a big pie, so that it increases their muscle or the consumer strength. So that is one area, and related to that would be the CBG space, where we have three major elements, that you have offtake, you have land, and then feedstock. So land and feedstock are not, it's a challenge for the CGD entities, but offtake obviously they can do. So land and feedstock, maybe they need some partnership with some other players. So that is one space, and both of them are aimed towards sourcing basically.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yes, Saurabh, with my experience from electricity, because if you just go to another tangent, we have very similar business in electricity, which is distribution company. And I think we must definitely explore the synergies between CGD and distribution company. I think one way will be like, can we have same manpower doing same thing, like the billing, how that can be done together, or the revenue collection and probably maintenance part. So maybe some kind of collaboration has already been done, I think, with by IGL with NDPL, and that is I think on the smart metering, and that really makes good sense, because they are ahead of us in terms of the S curve, and that advantage we definitely should be taking. And so, and second part, I think CBG is very important element, where of course in Delhi it may not be possible, but if you go to any remote GA, there should be ample opportunity, and that kind of collaborations must be seen how they can maximize where there is adjoining agriculture area, or a good amount of waste is there. So waste is anyway should become part of the CGD thing. But besides that, if we go beyond waste and then look for opportunities on the agriculture waste, that I think should be explored.
And I just take a note from this, what the speakers have told, that yes, there should be a collaboration with the utility companies in this particular GA, like electricity, telecom, and also that the common infrastructure can be used to get away those extra expenditure that we are doing. And another thing is that obviously if there is a collaborated approach to, because all the CGD entities, we cannot have our portfolio in such a way, if you can manage our portfolio in such a way that the big players can bring LNGs and they can distribute at a reasonable price, and there should be a segregation between the big players like the fertilizer plants or power plants, where they consume a major quantity of gases, but CGD entities are now a small quantity of gases. If there is a segregation of price, and if they can offer a reasonable price for us with a collaborative approach, then it will be better for the CGD entities as well.
Excellent. So, if I were to just, I'll go back to the point that I made right at the beginning, right, about the glass half empty or half full. I will rephrase it now to say, I think the glass is certainly more than half full, and the remaining part of it is brimming with possibilities. What we just heard from the group, I mean, in the last couple of minutes, the kind of ideas that I've heard, I think even if we were to do 50-60% of that, some of that can just be transformative for the sector. I know people are already doing that. It's great that this very fantastic panel had the opportunity to share it with this larger audience. And I, as somebody who's so passionate about the sector, just like the rest of you, sincerely believe that CGD has a great future in India, and it's in safe hands. So all the best to this panel and to everybody in the room, and thank you for being a great audience.
Thank you all.